Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at someone you once loved, really loved, and thought to yourself, how did we get here? Maybe the passion faded. Maybe the little things turned into heavy things. Maybe you gave so much of yourself that, at some point, there was nothing left to give and they still wanted more. This is the brutal truth about relationships that nobody tells you. Love is not enough. And until you hear this, really hear it, you will keep breaking your own heart, thinking you're doing everything right. So let's talk. Really talk. Because you deserve a relationship that doesn't just exist, but one that feels like home. And it starts with seeing the truth, clearly, painfully, and honestly. We are taught from such a young age that love is the answer to everything. That if you love hard enough, stay long enough, give enough of yourself, somehow things will work. But love, by itself, is not the glue that keeps a relationship intact. And one of the most painful realities we come to face is that love can actually be present in the wrong relationship. You can love someone deeply and still not feel safe with them. And I don't just mean physical safety, I mean emotional safety. The kind where you know you can bring your full self to the table. Your messy, unfiltered, vulnerable self, and not fear rejection, judgment, or punishment. See, when you're in a space where every emotional expression feels like a risk, that's not love, it's walking on a tightrope. You start editing your thoughts before you speak. You start silencing your needs. You start performing a version of yourself that's palatable, that doesn't rock the boat. You choose being agreeable over being honest. You convince yourself, if I just stay calm, if I don't complain, if I show how understanding I can be, maybe then they'll see how worth it I am. And all the while, you're abandoning parts of you just to keep the relationship intact. That's the tragedy. Because a relationship that's truly right for you doesn't require you to earn your place. It holds space for your full humanity. Your joy, your fear, your complexity. It doesn't punish you for having emotions. It doesn't leave you confused for days after a disagreement, wondering if you went too far just for asking to be heard. It doesn't leave you in limbo, questioning if your needs are too much or if you should have just stayed quiet again. What many people don't realize is that love without emotional safety turns into a cycle of self-doubt. You start thinking you're the problem. You begin to believe that maybe you're just bad at relationships, that maybe you want too much, feel too much, expect too much. But the truth is, you're just not in a relationship where your heart is safe to be itself. And when your heart doesn't feel safe, it shrinks. It becomes cautious, suspicious, quiet, and eventually resentful. The most ironic part is that you can still have beautiful moments with someone and not feel safe with them. They can be charming, affectionate, maybe even say all the right things in public. But behind closed doors, you're the one crying yourself to sleep. You're the one feeling lonely in a room with the person you love most. And that kind of loneliness, it cuts deeper than being alone. Because now, not only do you feel unseen, but you also feel invisible in a space where you thought you were supposed to matter. And here's where it becomes empowering. Once you recognize that emotional safety isn't a luxury in a relationship, but a requirement, your whole standard shifts. You stop excusing the behavior that keeps you anxious. You stop tolerating the confusion that keeps you second-guessing. You stop mistaking intensity for intimacy, drama for passion, and apologies for change. Because you realize that love without safety is just survival. It's exhausting, it's draining, and it's not what you were made for. Now let's talk about what we allow. Because this is the second brutal truth. People don't treat you the way they want. They treat you the way you let them. And that's confronting, isn't it? Because it's easier to point the finger outward. It's easier to blame them for being cold, inconsistent, selfish. And maybe they are. But here's the mirror: you taught them what was acceptable by what you tolerated. It's not that you said, "Please ignore my boundaries." It's not that you said, feel free to cancel plans last minute, or speak to me like I don't matter. But when you didn't speak up, when you accepted the apology without the change, when you stayed after the disrespect, that was the lesson. That's the part most people don't want to own. Because it's easier to wait for someone to change than it is to admit that you have to change your standards. The moment you stop rewarding bad behavior with continued access to your life is the moment your entire dynamic shifts. And it's not always about being confrontational. Sometimes the most powerful boundary is silence, distance, detachment. It's not about punishing them, it's about protecting you. Because every time you minimize your needs to maintain someone's presence, you reinforce the belief that their comfort is more important than your well-being. And over time, that internal dialogue becomes destructive. Maybe I deserve this. Maybe this is what relationships are. Maybe this is the best I can get. But let me tell you something, your standard sets the tone. The more you elevate it, the more your energy begins to repel the ones who are only here for convenience, and attract the ones who are ready for depth. You don't need to fight to be seen. You don't need to prove you're enough. You simply need to stop giving the best parts of yourself to people who can't recognize their value. You deserve consistency. You deserve respect. You deserve to be loved in a way that doesn't require you to constantly question your place in someone's life. We have this idea that staying is strength, that holding on is brave, that if we just give it a little more time, if we're a little more patient, if we love a little harder, something will change. And so we stay. We stay because we don't want to be the one who gave up. We stay because we've already invested so much time. We stay because we're afraid of starting over, of being alone, of the silence that follows a goodbye we never thought we'd have to say. But the truth that almost nobody wants to admit is this. Staying too long often hurts more than leaving ever will. The slow erosion of self in the wrong relationship is a heartbreak that creeps in quietly. You don't always see it coming. First, you're just compromising. You're just adjusting, bending, forgiving because that's what love does, right? But over time, those tiny compromises start piling up. And before you know it, you don't recognize yourself anymore. You're not laughing the way you used to. You're not confident like you once were. You're walking on eggshells, overthinking every text, every tone, every moment of silence. And you call that love, but it's not. It's fear. It's habit. It's the belief that you don't deserve more than this. There comes a point in every unhealthy relationship where the pain of staying finally outweighs the fear of leaving. But sometimes we're so emotionally worn down by then, we don't even have the strength to take that step. And what's worse, we start to internalize the dysfunction as our fault. We ask ourselves, what if I'm too sensitive? What if I expected too much? What if this is just how it's supposed to be? That inner dialogue becomes a prison. Keeps you tethered to something that's slowly draining the life out of you and convincing you it's all you'll ever get. Here's the reality. Every time you stay when your needs are unmet, when your peace is disturbed, when your soul feels heavy, you're choosing pain that you've gotten used to over the healing you've yet to experience. Leaving is not weakness. Leaving is not failure. It's one of the most courageous things you can do. Because walking away doesn't just mean leaving them behind. It means choosing you for the first time in a long time. It means saying, I matter. My joy matters. My heart matters. And that shift, however painful, is the beginning of something far more powerful than anything you were clinging to. People stay too long for many reasons. Guilt, obligation, hope. Hope is one of the biggest culprits. We hold on because of potential, because of the what if. But hope that keeps you stuck isn't hope. It's denial dressed up as optimism. You can hope for someone to change without staying in the crossfire while they don't. You can wish them well without sacrificing your emotional health in the process. You can love someone deeply and still know they're not good for you. Those things can all be true at once. And that brings us to something equally important: how we see ourselves after being told we're too much, too emotional, too demanding, too intense. It's one of the most damaging lies people absorb in relationships, especially when they've spent years trying to be easygoing, low maintenance, or chill. But let me say this as clearly as I can: you are not too much. They were just not enough. And I don't mean that in a condescending, arrogant way. I mean that their capacity did not match your depth. Their level of emotional maturity couldn't meet you where you stood. Their bandwidth for love was smaller than the love you were offering. That's not your failure. That's simply misalignment. When someone can't handle your truth, your vulnerability, your strength, or your standards, it's not a cue for you to shrink. It's a cue for you to step back and reassess. Because the right person, the emotionally equipped, mature, self-aware person, will not see your passion as overwhelming. They'll see it as inspiring. They won't flinch at your honesty. They'll respect it. They won't mock your emotional needs. They'll rise to meet them. But here's the problem: we internalize rejection like it's feedback on our character, like it's a reflection of what we deserve. So when someone walks away, or pulls back, or accuses you of being too much, you begin to question your value. You water yourself down. You start to show less of who you are. And eventually, you become a muted version of the person you once were, all to keep someone around who was never ready in the first place. There's nothing noble about dimming your light so someone else can feel more comfortable in your presence. You were not meant to be easy to swallow. You were meant to challenge, to expand, to love fully, to feel deeply. And anyone who tries to compress that, to box you in, silence you, minimize you, is not protecting you, they're limiting you. The right relationship will not require you to constantly prove your worth. It will reflect it back to you. You won't have to explain why you need reassurance, it will be given. You won't have to beg for consistency. It will be there. You won't feel like a burden for expressing what's in your heart. You'll feel safe doing so. And when you find that kind of connection, you'll look back at all the times you felt too much and realize those moments weren't telling you to change. They were telling you to wait, to keep being exactly who you are. Because someone someday is going to see all of that and not just stay but choose it every day. If anything in this resonated with you, let it be your wake-up call. Not to walk away from love, but to walk toward the version of you who stops settling for less. You don't need to chase, fix, or prove your worth to anyone. You are already worthy of a love that feels calm, reciprocal, and deeply safe. And I want to hear from you. What truth hit you the hardest today? Drop it in the comments. Let's create a space where honesty, healing, and real connection live. If this helped you see things more clearly, please like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more transformational relationship advice. And before you go, what topic do you want us to dive into next? Your voice matters. Let's make this community one where your heart finally feels seen. We're in this together. Always.